Hey, so I just gotta say something. Um, for those who know of any of my platforms, you know that I lost my pages, access to some of my pages, so I'm in the beginning stages of starting to post more frequently again and recover my platforms, and so I've been doing that. And yeah, they're freezing and stalling some of the views and stuff like that. That's fine. It's only a temporary uh obstruction that will be worked through. But in doing that, I'm beginning to engage with people again. I had to start a new Facebook page because I don't have access to the old one, and so I can't just wait forever. I'm going to start posting again, and so I'm starting to interact with people, and I see something. First of all, I'm proud of the way I deliver things. My platforms have always appealed to a lot of different people across racial lines. And I really am proud of that. So when I get things going again, I want to keep that going. God willing, I want to keep that thing because I don't want to talk to the choir. I liked that, I have an appeal that talks to lots of different people and, not a lot of people, but when people come around, they're always something else or from some other part of the world or from some other race. And I love that. I really love that. The beautiful thing is that there's so many issues that unite people. We all understand it and everybody's on board with the discussion. But the minute you start talking about racial oppression, someone comes around and gets triggered and tells so-called people of color that you're not really going through what you're going through and your racial reality isn't real. And it's really a psychotic, really evil, demented thing. These people that are doing it are not evil. They're just ignorant. But every time someone of color speaks on racial issues, you know, someone from the dominant society is uncomfortable and fragile and comes around to say, hey, it's not about race. Like, see, like what planet do you come from? You know, and it's a really exhausting and exasperating thing when it's so divorced from reality that it's just frustrating, and it doesn't matter if we're talking about apartheid South Africa and all the historical atrocities with that we know as a fact. It doesn't matter if we're talking about Brazil or Cuba or many other, Hispanic nations in the diaspora where we know there's a history of the darker people going through a rougher time. And, the lighter people are the ones in power, in politics, seen on the novellas, all that imagery and all that dark history of the darker people being treated worse, or Australia, where the indigenous Aboriginal people are treated terribly. There's a history of that. And, they hear, they exist, they feel. We have all this history. King Leopold out in the Congo was hacking off people's limbs, and there's a history and a lineage of that trauma. And then when people from the lineage of these people speak their truth, someone from the dominant society comes around to say, oh, you're not really feeling what you're feeling, or what you're going through isn't real. Come on, man. It's not really about race. It is psychotic. It's psychotic. And there's people, I'm telling you, they're not bad people. And a lot of the people that do that are not evil people. They're just so damn ignorant and culturally clueless and unaware that when they do that, they are matrix operatives and don't even know it, because they will not hold themselves to a higher standard to get out of your own little fragile feelings and to understand that people around you on this planet may be having a different experience than you. And if you are truly a good person of light, you can hold space for that and shut up and listen instead of trying to control it because you are triggered and fragile. It's disgusting. And once again, I don't say this, angrily or hateful at towards these people, because a lot of these people, a lot of them are liberal types. A lot of these people are good natured, but willfully ignorant and clueless, and will not raise up to a higher standard and stop trying to silence people of color, so-called. I don't like that phrase, but stop trying to silence people of color when they're trying to speak their truth. How dare you? With the history that how dare you put yourself forward to do that and silence voices? And I'm no longer going to be afraid of that. And I think that's some of the things that have made me bite my tongue a little. And I'm sure other content creators feel the same. You don't want to lose people, so you mince your words to try to not lose followers. But I'm not doing that anymore. Like I said, I've consulted the supernatural entities, let's say. And one of the instructions is to not be afraid. Don't worry about views or followings. You're going to slow drip to where you need to be. Just speak your truth and be honest and authentic without fear. And that's what I'm going to continue to do. But one of my observations is that, and one of the things I don't like that I got to speak on, is that people want to fight the matrix only about their issue, but they don't want to hear something else that they're programmed about. And most usually it's on racial lines. Like, I'm a real one. There's a lot of personalities, popping out of the woodwork, trying to be seen. I'm a real one. Like during the pandemic, I was out in the streets with a bullhorn talking about these things and, big pharma. I was really out there without being seen. Nobody knows. I've been to protests, filming. I've been to Eric Garner's funeral. Nobody knows these things. I've been around. I've been doing things in the streets. I've gone to different court cases. I've been to Harvey Weinstein's court case. I've gone all over, and I really want to find out the truth is, so that when I talk to people, I know what I'm talking about. I've been to protests. I've been talking to people, doing things all unheralded, unseen. I am a real one. One thing I will say about me and what I do is that I'm consistent. And when it comes to fighting the matrix, there's different things that they're doing to us. They're doing it to us because, in health, pharmaceutical industry, economically, we're being taxed and double taxed and triple taxed, income taxed. There's so many things that they're doing that they're oppressing us. And another area where I fight the matrix is through the racial oppression. But every time you do that, some people get uncomfortable and are quick to say, oh, come on, it's not about race. What the hell do you mean? People don't want to fight the matrix when it doesn't concern them personally. Or let me say this, because I do believe these people are beautiful people that they don't realize that they're programmed about certain things. A lot of times people are kept in their own community and they don't see or understand someone else's plight, someone else's oppression. And that's exactly what they want. They want to keep you over here, like worrying about your stuff and not worrying about or not seeing what this other people are going through. And if you let that happen to you, you are trapped in the matrix. A certain segment of you in your life, in your mind, is trapped in the matrix. We need to get to a place where we think like humans and we don't think in program. Let me give you an example. All the time in the news, what happens? You see cases of police brutality being explained by different platforms. You have your conservative platforms, you have your liberal platforms, you have your white commentators, you have your black commentators, and there's a side. And I don't want to participate in that. There's a human side. There's a human aspect that should be always tapped into, regardless of race, gender. And when we learn to think outside of the matrix, that's when they lose. What people are trained to do is to, especially if you're, white dominant society, you're trained and programmed to side with the police, right or wrong. It doesn't matter the issue. If there's a white kid versus a black kid, you're trained and programmed. This is what the matrix wants. You have to break the programming and come out of yourself. We are all beings of light and energy having an experience from different perspectives, some as a white woman, some as a black man, but we all are part of the one. We all are part of source and having a different experience. And when we remove the ego, when we remove, the programming, we can all think and see the common ground and solve all these issues when we get out of our ego and get out of our lower selves and look at things from a human perspective. And when we do that, people wake up and stop trying to emotionally frame the narrative. This is why there's so much arguing online and social media. The cop's not always right, and vice versa. And people will stop trying to frame the narrative and force outcomes. And people will start thinking like humans with no bias, no agenda, no, people think ridiculously, like Carmelo Anthony. You got to believe that the guy's a thug. And, a lot of back and forth nonsense, escaping the matrix is letting the chains go, being free of ego and just thinking of things completely without an objective and thinking like a human. And when you do that, you'll begin to be honest. You'll be honest about world history and, you will break the matrix and realize, it's not anything to be guilty about or feel shame about, but we have a horrible history. In this country alone, the natives were unalived and their land was stolen. Simultaneously, another people were stolen and exploited for hundreds of years. And we're living in the aftermath of that reality, that real reality. And to live in this day and deny all that and don't think that there were systems in place to oppress that still linger, maybe not as much, but still linger today. And there's remnants of that old world that are still with us today. We had Jim Crow in the 1960s and, redlining, over policing. And to live in a community where you don't really see these things and it's so easy to be programmed right today. For example, I have an addiction of watching cop shows and I love it because I'm interested in how the law is working in these situations. I am interested in what the narrator is not saying. I'm interested in all manner of humanity. I know the videos where the cops were excellent. There's lots of videos where the cops were excellent. There's a lot of videos where the cops are made to look like they were right, but they were actually violating the person's life, the person's Freudian slip. They were violating the person's rights, but the emotional, non-thinking 85% thinks the cop is right because of the person's attitude or demeanor. And people don't realize, hey, it doesn't matter. This is the professional. This is the citizen. And, there's a lot of different situations where people are acting in their programming. And I noticed that sometimes when I speak on racial issues, which I'm doing more of now, I'll be honest, I didn't do it as much in the past, but I'm doing more of it now because that's part of my assignment. People feel the need to come out. That's when you're hitting the truth, when people get triggered by what you say. Because when I'm talking about the pharmaceutical industry, when I'm talking about fluoride in the water, chemtrails, when I'm talking about anything fighting the matrix. But when I talk about race issues, oh, come on, it's not about race. Really? Really? Don't be afraid to fight the matrix from all sides and get out of your lower self and your nature, your programming, to see that there are different things going on that the same people are doing to all of us. And to deny this person or this fight over here is giving up ground think of it in terms of war. You're giving up ground on this area, because so the enemy is going to sweep us all if you continue to allow that. If you don't stand up for these people here, you're letting the enemy infiltrate. And the same thing goes for all issues. I am simply consistent. So when I talk about racial issues, and I'm spending time on it now because we have a lot of coons, they're weak, they're weasels, they like to tap dance for white approval. They're all over the place. We have enough coons, we have enough weak people, we have enough people who comply with the establishment. We have enough of that, but we need more real ones to speak truth to power. And people who are not just hateful, people who love humanity, love all people, love humanity, to speak truth to power and not be weak tools and, just complying or speaking to a base, because that's not fighting the matrix. When you speak to a Christian, speaking to Christians for the applause of what you said. When you're a conservative, speaking to conservatives for the applause of what you said. If you're a liberal, speaking to liberals for the applause of what you said. You're not really fighting the matrix. There's people who are beings of light and love that are not labeled Democrat, liberal, black, white, who are bringing light, who are trying to change this world, to change the environment. Don't stop them when they do. You're too used to the grifter. You're too used to the person speaking to the choir. You're too used to being stuck in your echo chamber. So when someone is really telling the truth or speaking the truth or fighting the matrix, even people who are in the light, usually, get triggered when that person is simply consistent. So all that to say, I'm going to be fighting a lot of issues. I'm going to be talking about health and diet. I'm going to be talking about, I am going to cover that latest incident with the police to give my perspective on that. I'm going to also talk about, the death of Malcolm and Jamal Warner. That hit me hard. And I'm going to do that in a separate video. I'm going to be talking about a lot of things. I'm going to be talking about this state just stopped water fluoridation, which is huge. There's a lot of topics I'm going to talk about. But all I ask from you truly awakened people, or people who are trying to awaken, listen, get out of the ego, get out of your lower self, and don't be triggered if, it's become, racism was so institutionalized that a black person sticking up for black people triggers people. That means you're stuck in the matrix and programming. When someone is just speaking truth to or something that is true in your subconscious mind, why does that trigger you? You should be standing with that person. It's such a beautiful utopia in the mind of our higher selves if we just let go and stop holding things and chaining ourselves to mental slavery in our prisons and thinking that this is our identity, when it's not. You're so much more than that. And when we tap into our higher selves and learn how to think and reason from a higher place, the world would be a better place like that. And they lose. So that's all I'm saying in this video. Understand that, the world is about to change drastically, and you don't clan up anything. You lock arms with people who want the same thing as you, which is the end of, we're fighting evil. This is a spiritual war. And when you're spiritually aligned and balanced, you are ready to do that, and things won't trigger you when someone is in the same spirit, but just fighting a different battle. So when I speak about race stuff, it's nothing to be triggered. You're just not used to a community defending themselves that, speaks conservative talk sometimes, it's something people are not used to. So let it go. And I'm not going to stop. And, the intention of mine is to raise the collective vibration on all issues, including the disgusting, ugly racial history we have here, that we need to usher in a new world despite of. All right. That's all for now, guys. See you in the next one.